Bandit Nation, welcome back to another video. We got a good video today. We'll be talking quarterbacks. We going over my top 10 quarterbacks. But first we got some new news. News per Roto World today. First we'll start out with the Chicago Bears are releasing tight end Trey Burton after just 2 seasons. The team announced Friday. Burton's 28 years old. He joined the Bears prior to the 2018 season on a 4-year deal that contained $22 million in guaranteed. He started all 16 regular season games in his first year with the Bears. He had an okay year. He caught 54 balls, 569 yards, and 6 scores. But that did not carry over to last season. He only played in 8 games. Only snagged 14 balls, 84 yards, and no touchdowns. This was a good cut for the Bears. It opened up $6.8 million in cap space, but they do still owe him $4 million. Jimmy Graham will look to take over the tight end duties in Chicago. I would say that's a bit of an upgrade, but Jimmy Graham, his best days are behind him as he's winding down here. Hopefully, he still has a couple good years left. And on other news, we have news out of Cleveland. Browns running back Kareem Hunt has signed his second-round tender as a restricted free agent. Mary Kay Cabot of Cleveland.com reports that will pay him $3.27 million in 2020. Hunt, going on 24 now, is entering his 4th NFL season, second with the Browns. This is a good signing for Hunt. He's going to keep annoying Nick Chubb owners. Nick Chubb owners are not a big fan of Hunt. His ability to catch balls and his spark out of the backfield. He had 43 rushes and 37 receptions on 3 scores last year overall. And that's just going to go up this year. He was suspended his first 8 games of 2019, and I think the Browns, knowing that they have him all season, that'll change. I think he'll be an even bigger part of the offense this year. And I do think he will have some relevance. You can start him at that flex spot. And he's just going to be annoying to Nick Chubb all year. He's just going to take his points as we saw last year. Nick Chubb, while he was still a good running back the last half of the year, he wasn't as effective as the first half. And he was a little more inefficient. And I think Hunt can really play a good piece for the Browns here in 2020. Okay, so today we're going over my top 10 quarterbacks, and this list, I wouldn't say it was too hard to make. There's a couple question marks on it though. As I start out with number 1, this could be the biggest eyebrow raiser I have on this list. It's Patrick Mahomes. I have Patrick Mahomes at number 1, and don't freak out. We've seen Patrick Mahomes be the best quarterback in the league, and I think most people would consider him the best quarterback in the league. And for fantasy-wise, he tore up the 2018 season. 50 touchdowns. He had over 5,000 yards. He was just a monster. And Lamar Jackson is 1A. He's right there. There's both really good quarterbacks. You're not struggling with either one. You get either one of these quarterbacks, you are blessed. And the reason I just put Patrick ahead is just we've just seen it with him. Last year he was banged up. He only was in 14 games, but when he was in those 14 games, I would say they kind of rushed him back. He wasn't 100. He wasn't perfect when he came back. He wasn't running as much. In the games he did play in early on before he got hurt, he didn't have Tyreek Hill for a lot of those games early on. So, I don't think you can just go off last season. I know, obviously, Lamar Jackson had such a better year than him, but I like Patrick Mahomes this year. He's in an easy conference. Look who he's playing. He's playing the Chargers, the Raiders, the Broncos. Those teams aren't really threatening him that much. And, his ADP is at 16.7 right now, and, I think that's a little high. I do think that's normal, and I'm not surprised by that. But I definitely think at 16, there's better value out there. I I would probably pick him the 25 range. I think that'd be a good spot for him to land. But, 16, he's a really good player. I can understand that and I can see that. Now, number 2, I got Lamar Jackson. And I got Lamar Jackson. And, there's no doubt about it. This dude's got talent. QB1 last year. He had 36 touchdowns plus 7 rushing, 36 passing, 7 rushing. Like I said, he's quarterback 1A. If you have him or Mahomes, you're very lucky. You're not going to struggle this year at the quarterback position. His ADP is 13.4, which is too high. That's right. It's the first pick that's the first pick of the second round. I don't think he's worse there. I'd be picking him around 25 with Mahomes, 24, 25, right as that second to third round. I do think that'd be an appropriate spot to pick him. This is the only reason I put him at 2. Can he continue this pace? We've seen him struggle. 2018, especially in that playoff game, we've seen him struggle. And can he continue on this tirade he went on last year? And his conference is a little harder. The Cleveland Browns, they got a good front with Myles Garrett. We'll see his eligibility this year. The Steelers have a good front. Browns have a good front. Bengals, not quite, but they're getting there. And just the weapons he has. He doesn't have Tyreek Hill, doesn't have a Travis Kelce. McCole Hardman, Sammy Watkins. A.J. Brown. Marquise Brown, and some of those, Mark Andrews. He does have very good weapons, but not at the level that Patrick Mahomes has. So those 2 reasons, that's the reason I think, and it's going to be very close if they both have healthy years and they both play good, but I do think he'll be just short of Patrick Mahomes at the end of the year. Next, I got Russell Wilson at 3. Solid year last year. You can't complain. He had 4,100 yards passing and 31 touchdowns. Never a bad year to own Russell Wilson. Right now he's at 49, his ADP, and I'd say that's about accurate. He's not really close to Patrick Mahomes and Lamar. There's a clear drop in a tier there. He's clearly behind them, and I'd say that's about right. He's about 30 picks behind them. And I'd say that's accurate, but he does have DK Metcalf coming back which I think he'll have a big sophomore year. Over 1,000 yards last year, and I do think him and Tyler Lockett, and they just added Greg Olsen this offseason. I do think Greg Olsen will play a huge role. And, he was QB4 last year, right behind Jameis Winston's historic 30-30 season. And, you're going to have to score points. Their conference, 49ers, they have a tough defense. You're going to have to score points there against them. Rams, they're kind of a question mark right now, but they still got players. And I think it'll be a shootout against them and the Cardinals, who Cardinals have just a horrible defense. But they have a big offense, so that's going to be a shootout. So I do think Russell Wilson is good at locked into that number 3 spot, and like I said, never a bad year to own him. That goes into number 4, Kyler Murray. I do think him and Russell Wilson are 3 and 4, are like Mahomes and Jackson. They're pretty much same value. I do think either one of those guys are pretty much the same. They'll both give you some rushing yards. They play in the same conference. They both have good weapons around them. Kyler Murray, Hopkins, Fitzgerald, Kirk, Isabella. He has good options in the Cliff Kingsbury offense, where they like to get off a lot of plays, high-paced offense, and he was a QB7 last year. Kyler Murray's looking to have a big sophomore year, and I think the 4 spot, you could have him at 3. I think 3 and 4, he's going at 48, which is right below Russell Wilson, but I think 48, that is also a good spot for him. He's right there with Wilson at 3 and 4, and I like him this year. I do think Kyler Murray's going to have a good year, a good sophomore campaign, and I think that's a good spot for him around the 50 mark. You get good value there. All right, number 5, we got Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott, say what you want about him. He's been pretty consistent. He gets the job done. he's a good quarterback. His ADP right now is 54. I'd say that's about accurate. If anything, I'd say it's a little high. I do think Dak's. I mean, he was second in passing yards last year, and he was QB2 behind Lamar Jackson. So there's no complaining there. I don't think he'll be QB. He had a good year, a lot of passing yards. They threw a lot. I don't think he'll keep that up. I think he will drop down a few spots, but still he's got Amari Cooper. He's got Gallup, who's a great young talent. So he's got weapons. He got Blake Jarwin. Just got some good young weapons there. And I think this is just, like I said with Russell Wilson, always a good year to own Dak Prescott. I think it's a good spot at 54, and that's just a good spot for him. Nothing really more needs to be said. He was a QB2 last year, and I think 5's a good spot. He'll be around QB5 this year. He'll have a good season. Now this next one, at number 6, I got Drew Brees. In this, I know what you're thinking. This could be a little high for Brees because of his age, because, he probably hasn't been that high in the past, but he is Drew Brees, and this year the window is closing. He plays in the NFC South, which is one of the weaker defensive divisions, especially secondary, in the NFL. And like I said, the window is closing. The Saints know this. I mean, he's already lining up TV deals after he's playing, and the Saints know that this is their year. Michael Thomas, they just brought in Emmanuel Sanders. Jared Cook's a top tight end. Traquan Smith. They got a lot of young guys, and they know sorry, not a lot of young guys. They got a lot of guys who are capable of just making big plays. And, he's at 72.6 for his ADP. And 72, I think, is a bargain. If you get him at 72, you'd be very fortunate. They're going to throw. They're going to throw a lot this year. You saw that with Michael Thomas last year setting the reception record. This is a great year to own him. They know, like I said, window's closing. They're going to have to throw. Alvin Kamara out of the backfield. I don't think they'll spend that much time running it. But when you have Michael Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders, Jared Cook, that's scary right there. I think this is the year Drew Brees, if he had one left in him, this was a year you'd see him go off. All right, now we'll go opposite of in age. We go to number 7 and Josh Allen, who's a young quarterback, and Josh Allen had a great year last year. Finished as QB6. The culture change in Buffalo, I think, really helped him. And, last year he was QB6, but this year they bring in Stephon Diggs, who is probably a top 10, top 12. He's right in the 10 to 12 range, 15. He's in there for wide receivers, and that's a huge ad for them. You got him, John Brown, Cole Beasley, Dawson Knox. They got a lot of weapons there, and in Buffalo made the playoffs last year. And I think they, with Brady leaving and kind of a lot of uncertainty in New England, I think they're the favorite right now to win the division. Yes, his running went down, but his passing is up. And yes, his decision making probably isn't that good. It's still a little weaker yet, considering his age. But this is a good year to draft Josh Allen. He's 60 right now in his ADP, and that's right in between Dak Prescott and right above it, Deshaun Watson. I'd say that's a pretty good value for him right there, considering he was QB6 last year. Add Stephon Diggs, and I think he'll run a little bit more this year. We'll see how that goes, but great. Josh Allen at 60 would be a great bargain. All right, so that brings us to 8. Tom Brady, TB12, coming from New England into Tampa Bay. This should be interesting. This will be really interesting. A lot of people will be interested to see how this go with the Bruce Arians offense. He was clearly disappointed with Jameis Winston at times and how he finished the year. And a lot of people don't know how this will work. Going from Winston to Brady. Winston was a young bomber who just loved taking chances, bombing the ball down the field, And Brady, he's more conservative. He likes dumping it off to James White and Julian Edelman across the middle, which I think that'll really Ronald Jones will be a big part of that. Dare Gumbawale, um, and Chris Godwin across the middle. I think those will impact very well from this Brady signing. But Mike Evans down the field, I don't see him improving this year. I don't see Tom Brady racking up that many passing yards or touchdowns as Winston did. But in the Bruce Arians offense, I do think he comes back and he's a top 8. He's a top 8 fantasy quarterback this year just because he's Tom Brady. He's the GOAT. And he plays in the NFC South. And age, yes, that's. But he's Tom Brady. Just look at him, freak of nature. He's 43, I believe, when the season will get underway. And he was QB 12 last year, which, he's a top 12 quarterback going from New England to Tampa Bay. I only see him going up. Right now he's in the 80s for his ADP, and I think that'd be a good spot to get him. I think that fits pretty well, and I do think you'd be getting him at a deal if you got him there. All right, that brings us to number 9, Deshaun Watson. And this one's tough because, you think number 9, you don't think Deshaun Watson. You think he'd be a top 5, top 6 fantasy quarterback, but I don't think so this year. I think this year he takes a step back, just considering the Bill O'Brien factor. He traded away DeAndre Hopkins, and you look at their receiving core now. Randall Cobb, Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks. I mean, I'm sure Will Fuller went down with a hamstring injury, and Brandon Cooks just got concussed during this video. There's no way that wide receiving corps will stay healthy. I'm guessing they might draft somebody in this wide receiver draft, but it's just sketchy, and I don't really know what to think. And he's a great athlete. He'll do fine this year. He'll be a top 10 quarterback for sure. But his ADP at 58 right now, there's guys like Josh Allen, Dak Prescott right by his ADP. Drew Brees even at 72. I think about taking those guys over Deshaun Watson just because there's so much uncertainty. And I think, they did bring in David Johnson, which that'll be interesting to see how he does this year. But I do think they won't rely on Deshaun Watson so much like they did in the last few years, just because he doesn't have the weapons, and it's just we don't know what to expect. We'll just say it that. And Deshaun Watson, if I had to put his ADP, I'd say it's around 70. He's going about 10 to 12 higher than I think he should be, but Deshaun Watson's still Deshaun Watson. He's still got to put points up. He's a top 10 quarterback. Which brings us to number 10, Matt Ryan. With Matt Ryan, you never know. He was QB 11 last year, and in the last 6 years, he was 11, 2, 15, 2, 19, 7. Those were his overall finishes in the last 6 years. And so, is he due for another 2 this year? Is he at 15? We don't really know. You never know with Matt Ryan. This year looks like a good year. I know he did lose his tight end, Austin Hooper. They brought in Hayden Hurst. That's an okay sign. Hayden Hurst is young, but you still got Julio and Calvin Ridley, which that duo is among the best of the NFL. And, those two guys are very good, and they'll likely bring somebody in the draft, and who knows? Matt Ryan, I do like him this year. They brought in Todd Gurley. Looks like they'll be I think he'll be an upgrade from Devonta Freeman, obviously, in the backfield. But I think this is the year Matt Ryan, if I had a gut, I think he'd be a top 10. I don't think he'll be outside of that like he was in years past. I don't think obviously he'll be at 2, but I'm thinking in the 10 to 7 range in there. But right now I just got him at 10 because a lot of uncertainty with him, and you just never know. One name I don't have on the list. Some of you are probably wondering, Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers was quarterback 10 last year. And all the kind of just a bad season. He didn't really have a bad season, but there was really 3 games. Especially that Raiders game where he had 6 touchdowns. That really just kind of put him over that hump of those middle-of-the-road guys to put him at 10. I like Aaron Rodgers. He's one of the best quarterbacks of all time, in the past 6 years where he's had full seasons: 2, 1, 7, 1, 6 on a bad knee, and 10 last year. That's 6 top 10 finishes in his last 6 healthy years. And it's never a bad year with Aaron Rodgers. Like I said, never a bad year to have Aaron Rodgers at your quarterback. But with the Matt LaFleur running game, they really ran the football more with Mike McCarthy leaving. And, just a good defense they've been playing, they really don't have to score. I mean, it always used to be Mike McCarthy passing in the red zone, passing whenever. Their defense used to be horrible, so they'd always get in shootouts, and he'd always have to pass. And I do still think he has that ability, as we saw last year. But he really didn't need to score that much last year, and I don't really think he needs to score that much this year. So that's why he's just out of my top 10. I have him at 11, 12. And, look for him to have a good year. I'd still draft him. He's at 61. I think that's a little high for his ADP. 61's a little high, but I'd draft him in that 70 range, right there with like Matt Ryan, Tom Brady, right in there. I think that's a good range for him, and look for him to have a average year. And the other guy I'm going to talk about today, my last and final guy, is Joe Burrow. He's a projected number 1 pick. It'd be Bengals will draft him number 1, barring something unforeseen. You just look at things are starting to turn around in Cincinnati. He's going to come in. He's going to have AJ Green, Tyler Boyd, John Ross. He's going to have an improved O-line. The also thing though, he does play in a tough conference. That AFC North is a tough conference with some tough fronts. I'd say I'd put him in the quarterback 12 and the quarterback 15 in there. I do think he'll have a good year, rookie, especially being with the weapons he has with Boyd and Green. Those are 2 good weapons outside. And I think, the Bengals will be playing for behind. They'll be playing for behind a bit, from behind. Oh, I didn't even mention the Ravens in their conference. Look out. They'll be playing from behind in a few games. So I do think Burrow, he'll be around the top 12, right around Aaron Rodgers, finishing the year. So look for him. We'll talk about him later, as we're going to do one of these videos. We're going to do one of these videos every month. And, we'll go over wide receivers and running backs and tight ends later in the week. But, this is a good video. We covered all my top quarterback rankings, and hope to catch you tomorrow. We'll be doing running backs tomorrow for the 2020 NFL season. We'll do our running back rankings in April. So have a good night.